If you ever make it back to Chicago, please let me know because dinner's on me.
You bet your ass.
Yes, sir.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
First of all, I want to start out talking about the film. This is obviously a very dramatic role for you, and obviously you're famous for being able to make that jump from comedy to drama. You look at what you did with the character Lou Grant. What skills or lessons or tricks did you learn from your time as an actor in comedy that still help you whenever you're working in drama?
You make it seem as if it's a genius discovery on my part. I just approach if you want to credit anybody, credit the writers for being highly intelligent and knowing how to put it down on paper. And I merely read and follow what I see on paper.
Well, you really do have a history of telling and being a part of very progressive stories that are really ahead of their time or honestly just reflective of the world around them. You look at the Mary Tyler Moore Show and Roots, and obviously this film. And I was wondering if you could talk to me about why it was important in your career to choose projects that were more than just entertainment, but they really did have something important to say.
You're once again giving me the Thomas Edison Award. It was a job. It was a job that looked good, it felt good, and I wanted to do it. And keep the larder supplied with rent money.
Fair enough. I want to flash back and ask you a couple of questions just as a fan of yours and a fan of your career. Obviously, your cinematic debut, your film debut was working alongside Elvis Presley. Now, we all have this sort of perception of him and the image of pop culture, but when you would get to spend time with him on the set in between takes, what were those moments like, your downtime with him?
I don't know about downtime. I was in the presence of the king, but he acted like a good old boy. And the first time was with Kid Galahad. And he was busy healing the fractures in his hands from practicing karate. And and he had an entourage of good old Southern boys following him. And I dealt with him, and he was very, very nice, very, very sociable, very nice, and easy to work with, and eager to learn. And a few years passed. The next thing I know, I'm working in a film with him called Change of Habit. That included Mary Tyler Moore, except I never worked with her in it. Not until a year or two later did I become a member of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. But nevertheless, he once again showed he was a lot slicker, a lot smoother. No more karate, no more broken bones, no more entourage, and still pleasant. Still a good guy to be around.
Because of my grandfather, I grew up on watching the classic Westerns of the 50s and the 60s. And so he would be absolutely thrilled to know that I was talking to you. And so I have to ask about El Dorado, working alongside Howard Hawks and John Wayne. And this was really just at the pinnacle of that classic Western era. And at that point in your career, I believe you were 37, around 37. Were you still nervous working alongside the likes of Hawks and John Wayne, or were you pretty assured of yourself by then?
Once again, I found myself going into uncharted territory. I regarded myself as a big liberal. I hadn't been proved yet as a liberal, but a big liberal. And here I was going against one of the biggest reactionaries of the times. So I didn't know how I'd be treated. And I was roasted on the first day. I passed the roast test. And once again, found him to be a nice, reasonable fellow. He seemed to have a resentment against the cameraman. I think his name was Hal Landers, and wanted to get rid of him, but Hawks wouldn't let him go.
Do you remember why he had a problem with the cameraman?
He thought him inefficient.
Fair enough. So obviously at this point now I have to jump over to Mary Tyler Moore's show. And you know, so often, sir, I will watch a movie or a TV show that comes out that's new. And then a few years later, I'll watch it and think, you know, that has not aged well. That's not as funny as I thought it was going to be. I could watch any episode of Mary Tyler Moore's show, and it is just as funny today as it was when it aired. From your perspective, what is the secret to making something not just funny when it comes out, but funny if someone stumbles across it in 50 or 60 years?
We were lucky enough to find writers, to have the writers and producers who created such an eternal meaningfulness to their writing. And they did. They really did.
There's that old cliche where they say, if you do what you love, that you don't work a day in your life. Whenever you were on that show, did you ever feel like you were working, or did it just feel like you were doing what you loved?
It was all a luck. 7 years of luck.
It's amazing. Obviously, you know, I'm sure you know the statistic that you're the only actor to win an Emmy for playing the same character in both a comedy and a drama. And, you know, which is, I think, a testament to the character of Lou Grant. You know, I think he's as reflective of the times now as he was then. Do you think about Lou Grant often? And do you think that there would ever be, is 2021 a time where you would ever be interested in seeing a reboot, seeing anyone else play that part?
No, I don't worry about those things. The fact that Lou has the staying power and the feather in the cap of playing it both ways. There's a story I tell about that Mary Tyler Moore was definitely a comedy. And then we launched into the dramatic show called Lou Grant. And there were laughs that occurred sporadically in the show. And I found that we had an audience of 300 watching Mary every time we filmed it. And they would laugh appreciatively. Well, we couldn't have that with the drama. So, and yet we were having occasional laugh lines that should be acknowledged by a laughter from somebody. But you couldn't have it on the track of the show itself. Maybe at home. So I devised a way of, when I'm acting it, I perfected a grimace, which I hoped would carry through to the audience at home and encourage them to laugh and let themselves go. Well, I was also in therapy at the time, and my first visit to the therapist, when the show opened, I asked him point blank. I said, well, "What did you think of the show?" He said, "Why do you grimace so much?" And I, boom, hit myself in the head, slapped myself in the head, picked myself off the ground. I said, "Oh my God, how stupid of me." And the next day I filmed, I guess, and cut out the grimaces. Let the audience discover the laughs for themselves and devil take the hindmost.
I have to confess to you that I cannot watch the first 10 minutes of Up without, I'm a grown man, without weeping. There's just an ugly, uncontrollable cry. It's been out for a little over a decade by this point, and obviously I'm sure that you've seen it, you know, your fair share of times, and you have grandchildren. No, you haven't seen it.
A couple of times.
Well, I was going to ask you about specifically those first 10 minutes and the sort of emotional impact that those first 10 minutes have on you.
I want to cry with you at the loss of that beautiful creature who was my wife. And she starts out as a gap-toothed tomboy, and she enters into a beautiful lady that I married. And it's a beautiful story. It's beautiful in the fact that we pick ourselves up and go on trekking, go on trucking.
There isn't an age group out there who hasn't in one way or another been affected by the work that you've done. You know, my grandparents grew up on Mary Tyler Moore and on Lou Grant. You know, I'm a big fan of Oliver Stone's work, so I loved you in JFK. There are kids who love Up and Elf. I loved Up and Elf. I'm curious as to just as an actor, what does it mean to, you know, whether an audience member is 5 or whether an audience member is 100, you've affected everyone, and what that means to you.
It's still sinking in. If it is sinking in, I don't know. I don't compare my fan mail to somebody else's. That's their business, and I got my business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm delighted that the 2 shows I hear about are Up and Elf. And I'm delighted that I'm in both, that I achieve an end in both, once again, because of the writing. And let the devil take the hindmost.
Looking back at your career and your legacy in pop culture and television and film, what is it that you are most proud of?
Longevity. I said I survived. That's in this age of immediate consumption. That's an achievement to be consumed and still survive.
Mr. Asner, this was the honor of a lifetime. I cannot tell you. I do a lot of junkets and interviews, and I tell my parents, and they go, okay, yeah, that's nice. That's great. That's wonderful. You talk to this person or that person. But whenever I told my family that I was speaking to you, they were genuinely excited. And this was just an absolute honor. And I cannot thank you enough for your time, sir.
Well, you tell them thanks for the loan of their son, and they did a good job themselves.
I will absolutely. They would love to hear that. So I really do appreciate it, sir. And you know, if you ever make it back to Chicago, please let me know, because dinner's on me.
You bet your ass.
Yes, sir.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.